When we refer to audit approach, three things should automatically spring to your mind. That is, nature, timing, and extent. Nature refers to the type of work or the features and characteristics of the tests that the auditor will perform when testing controls. When testing controls, the nature of testing would generally be observation, inspection, reperformance, or inquiry. Generally, tests of controls would be a combination of these procedures. ISA 330 paragraph 10A specifically requires inquiry to be combined with other audit procedures. The reasoning behind that is that inquiry alone will not be considered sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Timing refers to when the tests will be done. For example, the auditor may choose to test the controls after year end, or if there is a tight audit deadline, the auditor may choose to start the audit work before the end of the financial year or during the interim period. In this case, the auditor would need to ensure that testing is done between the interim period and the financial year end, so that evidence is obtained for the entire period being audited. Another consideration relating to the timing of tests of control is the ability for the auditor to rely on previous year's testing. For example, if the control tests in previous years were operating effectively, the auditor may choose to rely on this in the current year, provided there were no changes to those particular controls. However, ISA 330 paragraph 14b restricts the period of reliance that can be placed on such controls to a maximum of 2 years. In other words, the auditor would, at a minimum, be required to test these controls every 3 years, even if there were no changes to the controls. Extent refers to how much or how detailed will the testing be. ISA 330 paragraph A28 provides factors to consider when determining the extent of tests of controls. These include the frequency of the control performed. For example, is the control performed daily, weekly, monthly, biannually, or annually? The extent of testing of controls that are performed daily would be much greater than those performed monthly or annually. Other factors relate to the intended purpose of the test of control. For example, is the auditor going to perform the tests of controls now so that reliance can be placed on those tests for the next 2 audits? Is the tests of controls going to add to the sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence in relation to another assertion? The extent of testing will also be affected by any deficiencies or anomalies expected or identified during testing. To recap, the audit approach relates to the nature, timing, and extent of audit procedures. In this clip, we looked at the audit approach in relation to tests of control.